In this week's episode of Studio Inter, we'll be interviewing Dov Schiavone from Forza Italian Football. We'll be analysing all aspects of the Christian Eriksen signing, previewing the Udinese game, this week's Moratti, Frog and Moggi, and much, much more. Everything here on Studio Inter, only on SempreInter.com.
Recupera Brozovic, andiamo in contropiede, la porta è vuota, tira, attenzione, e gol, e gol!
Benvenuti, bentornati to another edition of Studio Inter. I'm your host Nima Tavallaey, wishing you to a very happy week despite the draw. It's mostly down to a certain gentleman from Denmark, but we will get into all of that. But first, let me introduce my panelist. He is the preview writer, the excellent preview writer at SempreInter.com, Mr. Mohamed Nassar.
Maybe, thank you for the kind words, maybe excellent preview writer, but terrible predictor of match results. But guys, very happy to be here tonight.
Yes, we're very happy as well. And we are also joined by what the Miami News Times called the best AM radio show of 2018. He calls himself a voiceover artist. He's on 5 Reasons Sports and 560 WQAM in Miami, Mr. Alex Donno.
Hey, I'm not quite as bad of a predictor as Mo, but not very good myself. But it's great to be back, guys, after a few draws on the pitch and a nice W in the transfer market.
Without a shadow of a doubt, and we will be discussing that. But before we get into all of that, we are joined by the editor-in-chief of Marca in English, and also Forza Italian Football, unclear role, Mr. David Schiavone. How are you, David? Live from San Siro, I might add.
I am live from San Siro. Ciao, hey guys. I hope you're well. I hope this is a bit upbeat given the transfer, despite the bad result of the weekend.
Oh, it sure is. It sure is. You're there to watch Milan against Torino. Tomorrow it's Inter against Fiorentina.
And I'll be back as well, Nima, as well. I should get a tent. Just count.
Because it's the Fiorentina game tomorrow, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Well, right. Let's get right into it. I mean, you and I, we do. I've been on your pod, and we speak quite a bit on WhatsApp and whatnot. So, I'm kind of curious to hear where you stand because we haven't spoken about this yet. Do you think that Conte, this Inter under Conte, has overperformed? Do you think they've underperformed, or do you think that, or where do you rank them so far?
I think it's just right, isn't it? It's not too hot, it's not too cold. It's just right. I think from where Conte's taken Inter from where you were last season, I think he's done a brilliant job. To be honest, I don't think he could really have done much more than what he has done. He's had a great first half of the season, and some of the performances have been absolutely brilliant. And there's only been maybe one or two, more so recently, where you kind of haven't been on the same level as you were, say, 2 or 3 months ago. So I don't think he's done too badly at all. And obviously with the recruits that have come in January, I think that's almost exactly what Conte needs to keep that push going for the rest of the season.
That's a good point. I'm going to hand you over to Mo. Mo, you got a question for Dov?
I wanted to ask you quickly. I mean, it's still fresh, hot off the press. Christian Eriksen. Who do you think benefits more out of this transfer in terms of reputation? Does Inter directly benefit from the reputation of signing such an informed, young, or a peak of his career sort of player, or does the league as a whole benefit as much, equally, or possibly even more from bringing in a top talent like that?
I think Inter benefit obviously most of all. Well, it kind of also shines a positive light on the league that, like you say, a player in his peak is choosing to come to Inter, and I'm sure he had. I know that he did have the opportunity to go to Real Madrid as well, but Inter wanted him more, and I think that attitude from Moratti, Conte, and the hierarchy at Inter to get him here had something to do with his decision to come here. And I think it's a big coup because obviously Inter are a massive club, regardless of what some people in England may think. And it's kind of the next stepping stone because now Inter seem to be heading in the right direction. I know we've spoken about it, or you guys have spoken about it in the past, how the club's reorganised itself, and you kind of keep going another step forward, and getting in a top quality player like Eriksen, potentially world class at the peak of his powers, is for me a great statement that Inter have made, especially since they just decided to pay the money in January, because they could have took it easy and just signed them for free in the summer, but they paid Tottenham the 20 million euros that they wanted, and to get them now to help them with a Scudetto push. So I think it's to be fair, I think everybody benefits. I think it's great for the league, great for Inter, and I think it's great for him as well.
For sure. Alex, did you have a question for Dov?
I do. Now, on the one hand, there's going to be plenty of opportunity for rotation in 3 competitions, but assuming all 4 are healthy and fit before any given match, between Brozovic, Eriksen, Sensi, and Barella, who would you say would be the odd man out if you're selecting a 3-man midfield?
See, that's a tough one, Alex, because I've had this conversation with a few people, because I was like, where is Eriksen going to fit into this midfield? Because for me, he's probably the most natural one for him to replace would be Sensi, because I think you'd want Eriksen to get closer to the strikers. Barella is a bit more defensive-minded for me than Sensi is, and obviously Brozovic is the linchpin of that midfield. So and the way he's performed this season as well, you wouldn't want to drop him. So I think Sensi is probably the one that's most at risk. But I think, given the way Conte plays and that intensity that he wants his players to play, I think there'll be opportunities for all 4 of them to rotate. You'll probably get a few combinations. I've heard people suggest that he could even play in front of the defence, kind of in the so-called Pirlo role, if you like. He's got the ability to do that. So I think that there's a few places he can play, and I can see a few positions. But for me, I think Sensi would be the one I would switch out.
That seems to be the general consensus in Italy. But before we let you go, I know it's getting closer to kickoff. I'd like you to predict the very competition that you're going to watch tonight. Who's going to win it? The Coppa Italia.
Oh, the Coppa Italia. I think if Inter obviously want to win a trophy, because I think if you don't win something this season, it could come across as a bit of a failure. So I think they'll probably be Juve. I think Juve are obviously the favourites, but I think they're going to be concentrating on the Champions League. So for me, I think just to get that trophy, it'll be Inter. No, I'm not just saying that because I'm on an Inter podcast either.
All right. What about who's going to win the Serie A, and also which teams will get to the Champions League, and also who will get to the Europa League, the 5th and 6th?
The Europa League's a tough one. There are a few good teams there, but Inter are among the favourites again. I think that for Inter, that depends how seriously Conte takes the competition. Again, it might come down if there's no Coppa Italia, for example, the Scudetto's possibly outreached, then the Europa League would come into play if you're still in it. Scudetto, I can't see past Juve, unfortunately, guys. I just think that Inter will probably slip up a few more times, and apart from the match against Napoli, for me, Juventus have improved a lot since the winter break, and I go there quite a lot as well, and you can see Sarri's imprint on the team slowly coming. Napoli result withstanding. So I think over the second half of the season, I think Juventus will do what Juventus do, which is lovely for all of us. So yeah.
No, but who do you think will finish 2nd to 4th, and who will finish 5th and 6th?
Second, Inter or Lazio. I've got a sneaky feeling Lazio could have a wee bit of a Scudetto challenge in them. Obviously, they're there right now, and they've got nothing else to play for. So I can see them keeping their good run going and being up there with Inter and Juve. And then the 4th spot, I think it'll be Roma. I think Atalanta's because Atalanta are still in the Champions League, then it's going to be tough for them to kind of manage that, plus Serie A. And I think Fonseca's done a really good job at Roma. He's kind of got a bit under the radar, given how well Lazio are doing and Conte's impact at Inter, that he's kind of went in there and done a pretty good job, given the state that they were in. So top four will be Juve at the top, and then Lazio and Inter, and then Roma getting the last one. With I think Atalanta will get Europa League, and I've got a sneaky feeling that Milan could do something, which would be unbelievable if they managed to get European football given the season that they've had.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. Right. So thank you so much for coming on. Buona partita, buon lavoro, and we'll talk to you soon.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. Have fun.
Talk soon. Ciao. Right, thanks a lot, Dov. I would like to thank Dov there, and at Dov Schiavone on Twitter if you want to follow him. He runs Forza Italian Football, and he also runs Marza in English. And he used to run the Gazzetta, the English version of Gazzetta dello Sport, which is no longer, which has been discontinued for quite some time now. Right, well, let's go to that, Eriksen. Let's talk about the statement of intent and what it means. I'm going to hand over the floor to you, Mo, because I think you've got a lot to say and you don't need a question for me to say
it. No, I think, like you rightly said before we went on air, this is a serious case of BDE. I'm very happy that Don Marotta is swinging his big bat, like Eddie Murphy's impression of the Caribbean vacation in Delirious, if anyone that can get the reference. But no, I look, I think
what's a beautiful girl like you doing here all alone? Oh man, I'm gonna watch that because of you tonight.
Me too.
Oh, brilliant!
So I think more than the actual impact on the field, which could be Schneider-esque from Eriksen, but even more on top of that, it's that first of all the intent, the fact that we are able to get a top talent that is wanted by other clubs, pull him away from those other clubs and attract him to Inter, to the Serie A, is fantastic for the project. And I think also the timing, right now, the team, I mean, we're all in dire need of a pick-me-up. The squad needs an injection of, proper positivity, with all due respect to Vignon. But bringing in Eriksen at this point in time is, I think, probably just what the doctor ordered. So I can't, I'm not going to talk about what we expect of him, because everyone knows what Eriksen's about and exactly where Conte will want to deploy him. So yeah, no, I think it's I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be happier. This week went from absolutely atrocious, or the weekend went from absolutely atrocious to very good to absolutely fantastic now. So couldn't be happier.
That's the thing for me, though. I'm glad you brought that up, because for me, it's such an important thing, because January ended because Inter always has January depressions, and so they did this time as well. It's no secret, 3 draws and whatnot, but it was a better way, but it was a better depression, if you will, in quotation marks, than it was before. And Inter kind of come out of it going into Fiorentina by galvanizing the club, by bringing in one of the most sought after players in Europe. I mean, let's not forget who was after this guy. It was PSG, it was Real Madrid. There was, there's a absolutely hilarious montage going on Twitter of Monblano, the guy who covers Juventus, who broke the Cristiano Ronaldo news, where he's talking to a Danish journalist from last summer about how much about Juventus' chances of signing Christian Eriksen. These are all the clubs that were in there, and Inter got him. Full stop. Inter just got him right under everyone's noses, and that is, and they do it at a time. I mean, they already had an agreement with him for June, and a contract signed for June from the 15th of January. What the management decided, what Suning decided, was to go all in now. They sold Politano, they sold Gabigol, and they brought in Christian Eriksen. And there's talk of now Olivier Giroud coming in as well as Victor Moses, who's on a loan, and Ashley Young, who came in very young. This is a way. This Eriksen signing is the cream, the cherry on the top here. It's the icing on the cake, and it really galvanizes the club. And they come out of a difficult period. I mean, no one's talking about that. Everyone's positive. and that has a lot of ripple effects, which I think shouldn't be underestimated. Alex, floor is yours. Let me know your thoughts.
Yeah, well, one thing, Nima, that I wanted to touch on is how much this not only benefits Inter, but it also benefits Christian Eriksen himself, because he really wanted out of Tottenham, and I just thought it was starting to become a little toxic and very obvious. This guy needed a change of scenery, and I think that it came down to that being why he was very happy to join in the middle of the season and not even wait until June to join the club. And, one of my closer friends is a big Tottenham fan, and he's very salty and sour about Eriksen. He desperately wanted him out of his club, and he's, basically trying to taunt me, saying, be careful what you wish for. This guy is selfish. Good luck to you. But honestly, I mean, how many times, guys, have we seen before that sometimes it's just about changing scenery and changing situation? And, I kind of look a little bit at the Icardi situation with Inter. I certainly didn't, tell any PSG supporter, oh, this guy is just going to, tear your club apart from inside out, because I think sometimes change of scenery is important when, you've ended a cycle. I mean, Eriksen had been with Tottenham since 2013. That's a really, really long time for a player of his caliber to stay with one club throughout his prime, and he had wanted out of there for more than a year. So I'm really, really curious to see what sort of energy he comes out of the gate with, because I think this guy, with the way he was, treated by a lot of the fans of the club that he used to play for, a lot of negativity, a lot of negative energy swirling around. And I think this is a huge weight lifted off his shoulders, because the next time you see this guy take the pitch for a home match, instead of people booing him, they're going to be singing his name at the Meazza. So I think it's going to be wonderful to see the way Eriksen is received the first time he comes on, probably as a substitute before he gets his first start. And, I think he's really going to come out there with a lot of energy and a big chip on his shoulder.
I hope so. Well, we're all in agreement here what it means, kind of in terms of intent and marketing and all and what have you. But what about if we talk about this from a tactical point of view? Because I don't see an issue here, because given how Conte drives his players and really exhausts them, you need to have at least two players in every position to be able to play this guy's football. So I'm not worried about that. I'm absolutely not worried about the rotation. I think players will need to be rested, and they will, everyone will be. So I don't think this is an issue as such. But Christian Eriksen is a trequartista. He's a number 10 role. And I wonder if we're, I'm speculating here, and I'm wondering here, because we haven't heard anything about the Lautaro negotiations and the new contract in quite a while, and if Inter are putting a little bit of water on that, and you don't hear it. You hear of Barcelona waiting there on the sidelines in the summer to activate that clause for 120 million euros. Inter have been wanting to sign Sandro Tonali, and half of Europe has been as well. Is it really impossible that we're moving towards a 3-5-1-1, given how, with Eriksen as the number 10 role, and given how previously in the past Antonio Conte has played in his midfielders goal a heck of a lot of goals, both at Chelsea and at Juventus? Is that the direction we're heading towards? And what do you feel about that, Mo?
I think, I have to say it hadn't crossed my mind that, for me, what Lautaro has done so far this season is proven that he's the next crown jewel in the Inter cabinet. So I don't know, maybe, but I just think that so much of Lukaku's good form has been down to the partnership fostered between him and Lautaro. I don't know if it's worth, possibly disbanding that duo to bring in Tonali. It hadn't crossed my mind, I have to say. It hadn't crossed my mind. But if it were up to me, I reckon that I would much rather keep Lautaro Lukaku intact, play Eriksen in a trequartista role with Barella and Brozovic, and rotate Sensi in and out in one of these three places, because we know that he's clearly his fitness is clearly an issue, and he's going to be in and out of the squad, and we can't rely on him as the fulcrum of that midfield. So this for me is what I had imagined the module looking like. It was Brozovic, Barella, and Eriksen, and Victor Moses and Ashley Young giving both defensive solidity in a less physical midfield, much more defensively solid than Candreva and, bless his heart, Biragi. So it overall the team is much more balanced as a complete 3-5-2 unit when I look at it this way, with Moses and Ashley Young and Brozovic, Barella and Eriksen, with the two Lula up front and the defensive trio in the back. To me, that seems like a complete comprehensive module. Now, talking about bringing in Tonali and 3-5-1-1, I don't know how Lukaku is going to play. Lukaku's best play has been with a second striker next to him, wherever he's played. So maybe we'll see. But I don't know if we're in a position now to bring in Tonali as well. Like, who do we upgrade for? Upgrading for Brozovic? Maybe. I don't know.
Alex, what are your thoughts? Because I'm thinking. Yeah, sorry, go.
Well, no, I've given what you said a lot of thought from the Lautaro angle, because just the reality is if Barcelona is dead set on signing him, and if he is dead set on joining Barcelona, there's really nothing Inter can do to stand in their way. That's the bad news. The good news would be they would make a massive profit, a massive plusvalenza off of selling him there, whether it's the release clause or even a little bit higher than that if they're able to raise the release clause, if they are managed to come to an extension. So I have given some thought to that scenario of Eriksen being more of a number 10, because it certainly is something that fits his characteristics. And this is a project he chose, guys. I mean, it's not as if anyone held a gun to his head and said you have to pick Inter over Real Madrid or anyone else who wanted him. So I've got to imagine they've gone over a ton of tactical possibilities with him. And if he's someone who enjoys playing a little bit more high up the pitch than the 3-5-2 would dictate, I think they're going to have to carve out a role for him in that regard. So. It's certainly interesting. And, when you bring up Sandro Tonali, not only is this a player that I tremendously covet, it's one of those things where not only can he help any team he joins, in our case, Inter, but you want to keep him off Juventus at all costs, because you're worried about what could happen if he does join Juve with Kulusevski already going in there next summer, how formidable their midfield could become. It's sort of been the weakness of their squad recently. So these are certainly things that swirl through my mind, but I do get what Mo is saying. It's hard for me right now to go over kind of like the Rain Man big board of all these tactical possibilities when we haven't actually seen Eriksen put on the shirt and exactly see what kind of a role he's playing. So I think my opinion on this is going to evolve a little bit more over the next 4 months.
That's a really good question, but I mean, at the same time, let's remember that Icardi and Lautaro could give Inter 200 million euros. That's without Perisic, that's without João Mario, and a bunch of other players that could lead Inter into cashing in up to almost 250 million euros on that, and that is quite a nice little transfer kitty right there. You can, you can buy 2 world-class wingbacks on either side that are provedly good. You can buy that extra central defender, and if you want to cash in on Godin, or if he accepts to play backup role, you can also, you know what I mean, like that. You can buy a lot of players for Conte to play with, and that he will enjoy playing with, that fit into his system. If now Conte is the system you want to go, and that's clearly where Inter want to go. So and Tonali, I think what Tonali would give Conte would be a kind of different dynamic altogether in that midfield, because Sensi, Brozovic, Tonali all can play in that so-called Pirlo regista role. Sensi and Tonali can also play as a mezzala. Barella can also play. You know what I mean? It gives you so many choices. And Christian Eriksen as that number 10, it gives him a lot of. It gives him a lot of. He can play 3-5-1-2, 3-5-1-1. In some cases, you could even buy someone like Federico Chiesa and play 3-4-3. So it opens up a lot of doors.
Oh my God, Nima!
I knew you were
enough already.
I know you were going to.
Enough of that.
No, buying Chiesa, and there's nothing you can do about it. no, but, no, but seriously, I mean, Federico, it gives him a lot of options. I mean, I love Lautaro, and I hope that they play, because I think Lautaro is the next superstar in football, and I hope that he turns into a superstar at Inter, because together with Lukaku, they just, God, what are they doing? I mean, it's unbelievable. But at the same time, I mean, as you said, Alex, there's nothing Inter can do about it unless Lautaro signs a contract extension removing that clause, and it doesn't seem like he's willing to do that. So I don't know, but I mean, before we get to that, what do we expect? I mean, so you're saying, so Mo thinks, if I got you correctly, 3-4-1-2 with Eriksen as a number 10, Barella and Brozovic behind him. I'm thinking that will be the most logical choice, given that Stefano Sensi is our Ming vase. He breaks at everything, but I wouldn't put it past Conte to play a 3-5-1-1, to play all three of them, and then some games place Brozovic, Sensi, Barella, and Eriksen in front of behind what's his name, Lukaku. We'll see. It's definitely interesting, and it gives something Conte he's not had. Options, and that's what's the most important thing.
And you also wonder if there could be the time to experiment with that over the next couple of weeks, since Lautaro is going to be suspended through the derby. So obviously you still have Sanchez available, certainly, but if there's ever a time to experiment, maybe do it when you don't have your top strike partnership.
Exactly, and Alexis Sanchez, I think we can easily say that he's not panned out the way people would have hoped. And him returning to Manchester United the way Ole Gunnar Solskjaer boasted about it today or yesterday, it didn't make me depressed, if we put it that way. I think I am perfectly okay with Alexis Sanchez returning to the Premier League and playing for United, especially given the absurd amount of wages that he commands right now. So I think, yeah, sure. I mean, you've got Olivier Giroud, who's going to come in because this is Conte. He wants his players, and he wants Giroud. He needs a backup to Lukaku, and I say fine, have at it, Haas. He's done it so well so far. Let him have what he wants. This is one of the biggest things that Mo and me and everyone on this pod have been critical of Inter, have been that if you're going to bring in a coach, back him all the way. Don't do it half-assed. And now they're doing it all the way, and it's pretty interesting to see. This is pretty fascinating. I'm going to ask you guys a trick question. Like, how many Danes, which before him, have played for Inter competitive games? Male players. And how many in the Serie A only? Mo, do you have any idea?
I mean, I remember Helvig, but otherwise I'm drawing blanks.
Was Jens Odgaard? Is he
No,
Danish?
He's Danish, but he never played for the.
Oh, right.
And I think even if he did, it was like one of these preseason games. So that doesn't count. Well, if he plays in the Serie A, or when he plays in the Serie A, he will be the third Dane after Thomas Helvig and Harald Nielsen, who played in the 50s and 60s or something like that. And he'll be
Harald.
Yeah, and he'll be the fourth overall, because remember Patrick Olsen, the youth.
Yes. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, Patrick Olsen. He'll be the fourth Dane after Patrick Olsen, who was supposed to be the best thing since bread came sliced and now plays in the Dutch league. He'll be the fourth Dane. Usually in the past, Denmark has been quite often for a country that AC Milan have signed quite a few players from. But yeah, you have quite a few. You have Thomasen, Brian Laudrup. And I can name a couple of more. There was loads when I was researching this. There was quite a few players actually that played for Milan. But the fourth Dane to play an official game for Inter, and the third to play in the Serie A. So we'll see. Hopefully he'll be more successful than all of them before, because Patrick Olsen was barely a parenthesis into his history, and Thomas Helvig was far from a success. So yeah. We'll see where that goes. Right. Let's move on to discussing the Udinese game and also a little bit touch on the Cagliari game, that Mo alluded to in the beginning of the show that kind of pissed everybody off, for better lack of words. And of course, Raja Nainggolan got his revenge, and it was written in the stars, wasn't it? I mean, it was, and also I don't.
It was also written in my preview. Let me just say.
Yes, it was. I know it was. I was reading it, and it did say that he was going to score, and he was close to scoring in the Coppa Italia. And I knew that when Inter completely mopped the floor with them in the Coppa Italia, that they were going to come back a week later and cause Inter problems in the Serie A. What did you think about that thing? I mean, to me, we have to talk about the referee because it was the worst refereeing performance. I'm not blaming the referee for Inter not winning, but it was the worst refereeing performance I have seen for a very long time this season, without a doubt. What do you think, Mo?
Yeah, I mean, when I had read a report, I didn't know this before, but when I was researching the referees for the preview, I didn't know that he was the referee who did the Parma game last year when Di Marco scored that handball wasn't counted.
Yeah.
No, I mean, clearly it's garbage. It's not as bad as Aviso last year with the Fiorentina game and the penalty against D'Ambrosio. But and like you rightly noted, we didn't lose because of refereeing errors. It was just a atrocious standard of refereing. The guy's just a numpty. You know, he should be allowed nowhere near a Serie A, a top level European, top flight European competition. I agree. Like there's nothing much more to say than it really was an abysmal performance. That's about that.
Right, Alex. What do you what do you say about that? Because I mean, to me, let's remember that the reason why Antonio Conte didn't speak after the game was because he was so angry at the end of the game that he flew into a rage that his heart skipped a beat, literally, and he needed to go to the hospital or something. Like, that's anger. That's rage.
Well, and you remember preseason when Conte said no more Pazza Inter. Well, I mean, Pazza Inter is still, it's causing his heart now to literally race. As far as the officiating goes, the refereeing, listen, Inter still should have won the match despite the horrific officiating. But if the officiating hadn't been so horrific, they probably would have won that match anyway. But the fact that they played poorly, it takes some of the sting out of the officiating, because I still, at the end of the day, Inter need only look at the mirror with the missed opportunities and the poor play in that match. As you said it, Nima and Mo, most predictable thing ever was Raja Nainggolan, although it was a little bit aided by a Bastoni deflection. Him scoring that goal was completely written in the stars before that match. As far as, maybe looking for a positive, it was nice to see Ashley Young have some impact. I don't know at the tender age of 85 how sustained that impact is going to be, but to have a nice assist to the Lautaro header, to what should have been a drawn penalty, which could have been the game-winning goal, that was not awarded. He did, I thought, rightfully earn what should have been a penalty kick. So he did have some impact on the match. It was interesting watching Stefano Sensi in that game. It was not a good performance from him, but he did make some really good runs. Like, he had an opportunity in the first half with a flick from Lukaku, and he essentially, if he had not missed his first touch terribly, would have been one-on-one with the keeper, what should have been a goal, but he botched the touch. It ended up being put out for a corner kick. So it's obvious with Sensi that he's getting there. Like, he's slowly getting back to his form, pre-injury back in October, but there's still just a couple things missing from him, especially in the final third. I was happy to see Grandpa Borja play okay. I mean, obviously this is not a world-class option at midfield. It's why Inter is going out and bringing in the likes of Christian Eriksen. But, I know that, Nima, you're very much on top of giving credit to Borja, and I completely agree with you. This is a guy I don't think is appreciated enough as a squad player. He's always a good soldier, always goes out there at, 34 years old, 35 years old, and provides some pretty meaningful moments for Inter. So certainly not a match I come away feeling good about, but maybe there were a few individual performances I can tip my cap to. And And obviously, if you look at the Serie A weekend as a whole, it was not a catastrophe because Lazio dropped points. They probably should have dropped all the points because I thought Roma outplayed them in the derby, and then Juventus went out there and fall 2-1 in Naples. So Inter did not lose any ground compared to Lazio. They actually gained a point on Juventus. So that's the silver lining after a tough match.
For sure, it is. And we Inter now go to another difficult game, and the game's all in February because let's remember we have a derby coming up after this. It's Udinese. It's Udinese away, and that's always tricky. But I do think that Eriksen will play, and I think with Lautaro away, this is it. This is Inter's chance to prove that they mean business, because I think that they will need to start winning again now if they are to have a serious chance of pushing Juventus all the way to the title, for a title challenge. What are your thoughts going into this, Mo? What's the most important thing you want to see?
I want to see, first of all, I want answers from Pinctus. I think the fact that our draws have all come after somewhat bright first half performances and then a clear physical drop-off in the second half and goals conceded between the 75th and the 80th minute, it's just a testament to the poor physical condition that the players are in. So I'd like to see, it's unfortunate that we have the Fiorentina match, the Coppa Italia match midweek, and it's a match of some importance to the team because clearly Inter want the Coppa as well. But I would like to see a team that can sustain a more than nominal level of physical output for the entire 90 minutes. That's really what I'm looking for. And if that means rotation in critical positions, so be it. But I need to see that. I need to see the same level of intensity. And it's funny because prior or post the Lecce game and prior to the Cagliari game, Conte had clearly come out and said that this is a pretty mediocre team if we're not able to play with a high level of intensity for the entire 90 minutes. And lo and behold, we see that exactly unfolding. The minute they take their foot off the gas, goals get conceded, and it's not like they know better. Of course, they know better. They know what they need to do. It's just the physical conditioning is no longer there. So, Pinctus did a wonder job with all the players in the beginning of the season. Candreva in particular, with the weight drop and running up and down the field on flank like an 18-year-old. So whatever he was doing back then, I'd like to see more of now, and that's really what I'll be looking out for the most.
That's a good shout. Alex, what about you?
I thought Mo hit it on the head. I don't have a whole lot to add to that. You certainly want to see intensity for the full 90 minutes. We've seen too many lapses in recent weeks. And I think the big thing for me is I look at the clash with Udinese, to me, with no disrespect to them, it's obvious Inter have the quality that they don't. I think it's just more about seeing Inter need to put it together. And I think a big part of that is they've not been clinical enough in finishing their chances. I mean, how many of these 1-1 draws can we look back and say, wow, well, they hit the woodwork, 2-3 times in the game, or there was that run we made where they were a half yard offsides before scoring a goal that was called back. I think maybe part of these missed chances could just be, the bounces don't always go your way. Like there are some games where you score 4 goals when you probably shouldn't have that many. Others where you're limited to 1 goal where you should have had more. So whether it just needs, whether it requires just a little bit more luck or it just requires a little bit more of a killer instinct attacking, I think part of that is I go back to what I recalled about Stefano Sensi having an unbelievable scoring chance where he just botched the touch and really should have had a relatively easy goal to finish it. You need to see them finish the chances. I'd like to see at least 2 goals against Udinese, and I know we have the quality to do that. It's just about putting it together.
For sure, and Udinese play. I mean, they have had some great form. They have a few players who I really like. It's not DePaul, it's Mandragora. I absolutely love Mandragora. I think I remember him when he played for not Catania. No, what are they called? They relegated. Walter Zenga coached them and drew against Lazio that year when we got to the Champions League first year under Spalletti. Thank you. That's the name I'm looking for. He played there for Crotone, and he played really, really well for Crotone. And then he went to Udinese, where he struggled a little bit. But this season, I think he's been one of those that has been one of the best. And I think that's a midfield battle that I think Inter need to watch out for. And then obviously Rodrigo De Paul, who always scores, and Kevin Lasagna, the Inter fan, who joins a long list, the brotherhood of Inter fans who have played against Inter and scored. So he always does well against Inter. So I think Inter need to watch out. This is not a difficult game. This is a very difficult game. And if we are to predict, I'm sorry guys, I'm thinking a draw here. I'm thinking 1-1. Mo, what about you?
I think we can't have any more draws. I think January curse broken. I think, or will it be? Will it still be January? Will it be the 31st? I can't remember. No, January curse broken, and I think finally we're going to get a proper Conte-esque performance from the team, and I think Lukaku is going to find the net, and I think it's going to be what Alex predicted, a 2-0 or a 2-1 win. Difficult, ground out, well-deserved, and precious for Inter.
I hope you're right. Alex?
What I'll predict, guys, is maybe this is wishful thinking, because I would like to see what we haven't seen in the last 3 Serie A matches, and that's even when you're 1-1 late in the match, to find the breakthrough, to find the late winner, Lazio style, 85th minute on, Matthias Vecino is not going to be called up to be the guy to do that this time around. So maybe I see the winner, 2-1 winner coming from the midfield. I'll go with Barella, who had, some chances to score in the first half in the previous game. So I think unlike the previous games where Inter could not find the late winner, the late difference, I think they'll get it this time. I'm not expecting maybe a walk in the park, a cakewalk, anything like that, but I think maybe past minute 80, we'll finally see the breakthrough.
See, when you say that Barella is going to score, it creates this like warm, fuzzy feeling in my stomach. Like I'm in love with the guy. I've been in love with him since the first day he came to Inter, and it was one of the players that I've always wanted. And Barella scoring, that's like, that's a really nice Sunday evening for me. So I hope you're absolutely right. I hope Barella does score. Do we think that Mr. Eriksen will play?
I think he will play. I think the question is, does he play from the start, or does he come on in the second half? I could see him making his debut in that match as a substitute, but I'd be very surprised if he doesn't play.
Me too. Also, Mo, do you think he'll play?
Yeah, I think so. I agree with Alex. I think that he probably won't start the match, but we'll definitely see some minutes, proper minutes, not just a last 10-minute cameo sort of performance from him. I think maybe the second half or the entirety of the second half, but I reckon he'll feature.
I think I don't. You see, I agree. I don't think he'll play against Fiorentina in the Coppa Italia game. I think he will make his full debut then, and depends on how much he will play, because the Milan derby, and we will be doing a full special Milan derby episode next week. So we'll let the people know the plans closer to that. But it's going to be something special. It's going to be exciting. We're all looking forward to it. I'm dreading it because Ibra against Inter, whenever he played for Juve or Milan, he scores against Inter, and he's galvanized them. And there's no doubt about it. They're in 8th place, and they have a chance to finish in the top 6, which is, like Dov said earlier, absolutely insane. Let's move on to the part of the show where we pay tribute, rip the piss out of, and criticize someone or something heavily in the world of football, starting with the positivity, which will be presented by Mr. Positivity himself, Mr. Mohamed Nassar.
He works a lot, he's intelligent, and he surprises people sometimes with his ideas. Not easy to find one person of these qualities.
Yeah, so I think despite the good feelings, the good vibes that Eriksen has brought to the club, I think the performances of late mean that I'm not going to look for a Moratti within the club. I think this week's Moratti has got to be Mr. Lino Gattuso. for finally.
I love
Finally,
the pettiness. I love the pettiness. I
no, I
absolutely love
mean,
the pettiness.
honestly, there's nothing petty there. I've always had a lot of love for the guy. I think he's absolutely mistreated as a manager by Milan. I think that the media have slighted him strongly for his start at Napoli, a very toxic environment, and he seems to be doing quite well. And for things to come, for things to finally gel together against Juventus in the week where we needed Juventus to really drop points, couldn't have asked for more. So hats off to Gattuso for leading Napoli to taking all 3 points against Juve and keeping Inter in the race.
And a little shout out for Maurizio Sarri for pissing off Juventus fans by saying the things he did after them having lost the game. That I enjoyed that. I would be lying if I didn't say
really petty. But I mean, like, you really have to be petty to get pissed off at that. The guy was it was a completely benign statement, and it was honest. I liked it.
I did it too.
Yeah, it speaks volumes of the people who got upset by it rather than the person.
Absolutely, and I agree with everything you said. But I knew they were going to get upset, and I enjoyed that. I'm sorry, shoot me. Like as soon I was watching that live, and I saw the way in which he said it, the intonation, it was exactly like you said. There was nothing wrong with it. But I knew I know who was going to get upset, and I know why they were going to get upset, and I know exactly what they were going to say. And I'm sorry, I giggled. What are you going to do? Right, let's move on to something much more comical. This week's Frog, which will be presented by Mr. Alex Donno.
È clamoroso! Autogol di Ranocchia!
Well, Nima, clearly you were just looking to your crystal ball, because I'll expand on that, but that's my frog. And it's not the actual comments themselves from Sarri, but I will read them to you for reference. It was more of the reaction. So after Sarri loses 2-1 back in Naples, he was asked, Sky asked him, are you more annoyed for losing in Napoli? His response, honestly, no. I'm happy for the guys I have a connection with forever. He's talking about the Napoli players, his former players. So if I have to lose, then I'm happy for them because I owe them a lot. And guys, I had the same reaction personally. Like, what wrong did he say there? What wrong did he say there? But of course, I so enjoyed the reaction of the Juventini, who already, they react so poorly to losing and dropping points because they are so spoiled from, the amazing 8+ year run that they've been on. And, this guy is not one of us. Get rid of this guy. What a clown. What an idiot. It's only their second loss in the entire Serie A campaign. But, to see Juventini just lose their minds off of what was, I thought, not only a very benign comment, but I thought a very respectful comment to, players that he has a big bond with that he used to coach. But to see people lose their minds over that, I took a lot of entertainment with that. So I guess it's fitting that for Mo's Moratti, he went with the winning coach from that match, and I went with a story that, surrounded the losing coach from that match. So we brought it full circle.
We sure did. No, I for all the reasons you said, I thought it was so benign, and I was watching the interview live. There was, like, you have to see it. He says it so respectfully, like, and this is Maurizio Sarri. He's not exactly known for being maybe a Renaissance man when it comes to his temper. He's a kind of a grumpy guy. He said it was
and Nima, probably a big part of the problem could be that, how many of the people reacting to the comment actually watched it live like you did? Because anytime you just see that quote, out of context, not seeing the facial expression, not hearing the intonation in his voice, I think it is easy to take it out of context. But maybe before losing your damn mind over it, you may want to watch the video of it.
Yes, that's exactly it. Right, let's move on to something much more negative. This week's Moggi, which I'll be presenting myself. This week's Moggi comes from Spain, and it's again the issue of racism in football and the despicable acts and monkey chants and hurling of racist abuse against Athletic Bilbao's forward Iñaki Williams by the Espanyol fans who were making monkey noises to him throughout the entire game and when he came off the pitch. This is disgusting. We don't need, don't want this anymore. Don't want to see it, and it happens all over Europe, and we have to call it out every time it happens, and it has to stop. Right, that's all we had time for this week. I'd like to thank Dov Schiavone at Dov Schiavone for those of you who want to follow him on Twitter. I'd like to thank you, Mo.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure being here. And I would just like to note that although Dov Schiavone's beard is glorious, it is only the second best beard in the world of calcio, followed not very closely behind the great Alex Donno himself.
Ooh, is that true? I didn't know that, Alex.
I appreciate that.
Have you been growing a bit? I know you've got like a stub, but I didn't know you had a full-on.
It was up until about a week ago. It was venturing into Tom Hanks in Castaway, 4 years on the island territory. I was basically under threat of divorce, coerced into trimming it. So it's a little bit more at like a little bit of maybe a little bit longer than Borja Valero length at the moment, but it was getting to the point where I was catching leftovers for my next meal in the beard. So it was time to trim it up a little bit.
Well, we're happy that you're not getting a divorce and that your beard is no longer a refrigerator of sorts. So thanks for coming on, Alex.
Thank you, guys. It's always a pleasure.
And until next week, my name is Nima Tavallaey, wishing you all a good week, 3 points, and a progression to the semifinals of the Coppa Italia. And sempre e solo Forza Inter.